Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream here on FPL Dopata. Hopefully, you are doing well. As you can see by the title and the thumbnail of this stream, we will be talking all things Chelsea. It's Dom, Damo, and I once again ready to go. And fellas, what a night. We weren't planning on streaming tonight, but here we are. Extra stream. Viewers are lucky. Before we get into it, thank you to everybody who has already subscribed, liked, shared, reposted, done all those good things with all the videos. And obviously over on Twitter, we've hit over 100 followers on Twitter in 3 days, which is absolutely fantastic. And a lot of credit has to go to Dom for putting in some serious work over on the Twitter space. So make sure you go show him a bit of love. But fellas, here we go. What a night. Dom, I think we have to go straight to you. Early thoughts before we unpack it as the resident Chelsea fan?
Absolutely cut. Just didn't expect it. Damo message. I found out from Damo. I didn't actually believe it. Thought he was taking the piss, but went and checked Twitter and just had a meltdown with a few of my other Twitter friends, Chelsea fan friends, and kind of just accepted it now. But yeah, absolutely cut.
Yeah. Obviously, coming off of a poor result overnight. I personally haven't watched much of the Champions League content at all, let alone just Chelsea. But to wake up and see the results, probably more damaging than the performance from what I have read and seen. But, you know, Chelsea's start to the season has been questioned quite heavily by a lot of people throughout different variations of media. I think there'd been some rumblings anyway prior to the season starting, not about getting sacked, but I think there'd been some disagreements from what I'd heard. But the other issue that's at play here is that although there must have been some concerns, the new board had backed Tuchel as well, which, you know, there's a whole lot of new players that have come into this club now that, as Tom, that's probably what you need to do. It's hope and pray at the moment, because a manager's not just inheriting a team that's been together. They're inheriting a huge group of players that need to gel, that may not fit under, you know, that new manager's approach or way of playing. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But maybe from a coaching perspective, Dame, sort of what are your thoughts at the moment on the squad and sort of where they're at with regards to maybe who could be coming in and what that might mean for the playing group moving forward?
Look, as the resident coach here at the minute, it is a bit of a weird one. Firstly, do I think it's the right decision they made? No, clearly. Secondly, found out pretty quickly and told Dom, and don't worry, I thought I was a bit of a joke when I heard first as well. But in terms of being a manager coming into that squad, there's two ways to look at it. First way is the Chelsea board need to appoint someone that plays a very similar system and need to appoint someone that can get the best out of these players, because he's not going to have any time or no time to bring in any of his own players until January. That is a long time, because we've got plenty of games between now and, of course, the World Cup period, and, of course, Champions League for Chelsea is a massive implication there as well, because it could ruin their whole campaign. From a coaching point of view, you're then looking straight away at Graham Potter. Plays a very similar system at Brighton, came flying at the blocks, been building something there for the last few years, and it would not surprise me that Chelsea go that way about it. In saying that, you know, there's obviously other managers around that they may go for too, but it does sound like Potter is the number one. And for me, it's either Potter or nothing for Chelsea at the minute as well. From a coaching perspective, he's the only coach that I think they can get to that plays a similar enough system that there's not going to be too much transition for the players. Being a new coach coming in and someone who's actually taken a new role for the last 7 weeks in his current coaching, when you're a new coach coming into a new squad that you have no idea about, you can't really implement too many things straight away, because you kind of in that position have to kind of just be like, look, I've got to just go with what they know. I've kind of got to keep things as simple as possible. I don't have any time to really build on, you know, preseason training or anything to build my philosophy. So it wouldn't have surprised me if Potter comes in. Chelsea is still going to be a little bit slow to learn exactly his ins and outs of his tactic, even though it's quite similar.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to spend the majority of this stream unpacking from an FPL perspective, is what this is going to mean for those Chelsea players as well. So, you know, I think if we're anticipating that it is going to be Potter, then you're looking 3-4-3 again, whether it's the 2 10s in behind a striker which I think actually suits Chelsea a bit better at the moment anyway. So if you're thinking who the personnel might be, if you're talking Aubameyang, Sterling, and then one of Mount, Havertz, or Pulisic playing in that other number 10 role that drifts, then I think that'll actually work quite well. I think the midfield is a bit different though, but Kante and Caicedo could play very similar roles, and then the Jorginho Kovacic could play the McAllister role, if we're looking at terms of Brighton and how that might look in Chelsea colours. So end of the day, definitely probably not ideal, but it'll be interesting to see what happens moving forward. But one thing I'll want to get into, I think we probably best going into it straight away. But before we do, Russo's got a question. Zidane question mark. What do we think? Could Zinedine Zidane be no chance?
Absolutely no chance. Yeah, absolutely nowhere near it. I don't think he wants a managerial role just yet, and I don't think he would want this role.
Yeah, I probably agree.
I would agree, but I think there's a world where it happens. If Chelsea don't get Potter, and then I think their next option then is Poch, and they don't get either, I could see a world where they overspend massively. When I mean overspend massively, as in like throwing big dollars at Zidane because he's the only one left.
The name would have been thrown around, but I don't think the talk is Zidane's nowhere near it.
No, I don't think he would be either. I don't think he's taking a job unless
I think it's Potter.
Again.
You can safely say it's Potter.
Yeah, I think it is.
He's been given permission to talk.
Yeah, I think that's Brighton accepting it then at that point too. Like they're not going to stand in his way to go manage in the Champions League and have the exposure that he probably deserves. He's been more than loyal to Brighton since joining at the moment.
But the FA would want it too. They'd love an English manager in a top 6 club.
Yeah, 100%. And it's big for Potter too because he probably deserves this shot. He's probably done enough time at Brighton, what he's built. I just think there's part of Potter that might be like, for the start of the season we had, could I really finish inside Europe with these boys this year and go on that run and see where we go? But he has to take this role.
I think this won't come again.
No, I think this is his time. And there's a couple of
big
good
teams
chats.
like that come knocking.
Yeah, and there's a couple of good chats in our top chats there in the live stream. One of them being Potter better than Poch. You'd have to say on current form as of right now, I'd rather, if you're a Chelsea fan, that you go Potter because I think he's in a better spot to take over in this role. And that second one is the one I wanted to get on there from Rods. Bielsa for Chelsea, no, but Bielsa for Brighton, if Brighton lose Potter, could be an option.
Yeah, I don't mind that shout. Similar work ethic, similar, not size, but...
That'd be a great... If you're a free agent, you're a manager, you'd jump at that Brighton team.
Yeah, that's why I think Bielsa's a really good shout because I think Bielsa could end up there and still do a very good job.
Yeah, I don't mind that. All right, let's move the conversation into a bit of an FPL mindset. So what I've got for us prepared tonight is some data that I want to go through with you guys. So let me get my slides ready to go. So we're going to do a little bit of a comparison. I probably should have structured this a little bit better, but what we'll do is I want to unpack the Chelsea wingback. So we're doing this with the mindset of that Graham Potter's coming into the team. So who would like to sort of unpack some of the Reece James data at the moment?
I would firstly say that data is being heavily weighted by the fact he spent a lot of time at right centre-back, firstly. Yeah. Secondly, they have been a little bit shaky and where I feel a bit for Tuchel because it's been a period of transition of that back five, so to say. They've had to spend money to get people in. And right at the moment where, okay, everyone's in, time to see what they can do. Yes, I know the result this morning to go their way in the Champions League. You lose your manager. So I think for Reece James, those numbers aren't a true reflection of how good he can be. I feel like if you're looking for the true Reece James numbers, you've got to look in isolation the minutes he's played at right wing back and all his numbers from last year. And based on that, I actually think if Potter comes in and he's seeing what Trossard's doing, Estupiñán's doing, Jesse Marsch is doing, it could be...
Solly March.
Solly March, sorry, not Jesse March, the manager, apologies.
He's a manager.
Reece James's numbers could skyrocket because of the system that Potter would play.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. I think those couple games at centre-back have really heavily impacted his ability to impact games. But I think I'd love to hear the explanation from Tuchel eventually at some point on why. Like, I could understand it against Spurs. I really could understand it against Spurs when they've got Heung-min Son on that left-hand side that they wanted to man-mark him. And the role he did that day was fantastic. Once they realised Son was neutralised, and they went and redeployed him back at right wing-back, and he scored a goal. So, I felt that day they got the job right. But then to continue playing him at right centre-back, although there, Asp came back into the squad. So why isn't Asp playing in that right centre-back slot? And why isn't Reece James? He's like one of the best fullbacks in the league. Why are you moving a huge asset out of your team that fits your shape? That's what I just didn't understand. So unless there'd been some form of conversation or there'd been some disagreement with the ownership around the utilisation of the squad, who knows? Maybe it was his way of saying, I need Fofana, so I'm going to play James at centre-back to show you that I need Fofana. And then they finally got the deal done late. Who knows? And I don't think we'll know anytime soon. But is Reece James someone I'm looking at probably post week 9? If I get two or 3 game weeks, if I can get 3 game weeks out of looking at Reece James, the fact that he's now dropped back down to 6.0, he's not going to get much above 6.2 by the time I'm ready to bring him in. Then I think if I can get 2 games or so, with one of them obviously not being the Liverpool one in game week 8, if I can get the Fulham and Crystal Palace game to see what Reece James is going to be doing, then that Wolves fixture or that even the Crystal Palace fixture could be one that I really target the Chelsea defenders because of the good run of fixtures coming up. Any comments on Reece James? Because I feel like he's not one that we really need to unpack. I think we know he's going to just roll back into right wing back. Well, there's a high chance of him rolling back into right wing back and then commencing that same form he had last year.
Especially if it's Potter, it'll be 5 at the back. So, I agree.
I think you can, from game week 9, he's your man to the World Cup.
All right. This is the one I want to talk the most about. Cucurella. Now, we're talking about managers knowing the players.
Oh.
If it's Graham Potter, then Cucurella needs to be his left back.
Yeah.
This is the one I'm the most excited about because, is he nailed? Because Chilwell come on for 10 minutes, got a goal and an assist at the weekend as well. So there's a big dilemma that Potter is going to have because he knows Cucurella. He's played the system. He's played with Cucurella in that left wing back system at Brighton. But Ben Chilwell is just as deserving of that spot in the team. So it's going to be I think this is the big one because, to be fair, Cucurella's data for someone who's played wing back in a system that's been consistent isn't fantastic. And he's played, bar the first game, he started the other 6.
5.
That data doesn't reflect a wing back, or 5, sorry.
Yeah.
That data doesn't reflect someone who's played wing back for Chelsea for 5 game weeks, to me.
Yeah. I will say that.
But the eye test has been good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say eye test. The fact Sterling's missed a couple of chances. There's been a goal disallowed for offside in that too, which he would have had an assist from there in a different realm of the universe. He's had 3 assists this year, so 3 more on top of the 2. So I think that's one that's a little bit, he's one that on the eye test is a tick and on the stats is a no. If you look at it in isolation, is Cucurella nailed? This game week coming up against Fulham nailed because Chilwell started in the Champions League and played 65, 70 minutes. In long term, the only reason I say he's nailed is if it's Potter coming in, he knows what he's going to get from him at left wing back. So in the Premier League, he's a tick for me. More importantly, if he's not a tick at left wing back, he or Chilwell could play a left centre back, or from what you've seen of Potter and what he's done with Trossard, is there a realm of possibility one of those two move into the middle of the park? I see a world because of their work rate going in and around. Do I think that happens? No, because Trossard's a little bit of a different kettle of fish because he's a natural winger / striker, can play left wing back. Chilwell and Cucurella are left wing backs. But I also do think there's a world where he will try and fit Cucurella and Chilwell into the same team if needs be.
The only way that happens is if Cucurella plays left centre back. I don't see there's a world where Chilwell can play centre back.
Nah.
I don't know. Dom, what are your thoughts on that?
Nah. Potter played Cucurella as a left centre back to the back end of last year, but I don't know.
If he moves to
I do see a world. Sorry, I do see a world where Cucurella plays left centre back and Chilwell plays left wing back.
Yeah.
I'll put it.
And if that's the case, then I'd be hunting Ben Chilwell down from a fantasy perspective then, because I think he's dropped to 5'8", I think, off the top of my head. Again, from game week 9, Ben Chilwell could be the option then, because if you want that little bit cheaper option, I don't think people are going to go crazy bringing him in. So if he has a good game this week, whether it's off the bench or from the start, I don't think people are going to go nuts bringing him in because it's Chelsea game week 8. Oh, sorry, because it's Liverpool game week 8.
Yeah.
But from that game week 9, 10 and beyond, there's a big decision to be made because there's 3 real premium defenders where, do you take the extra bit of money in Reece James and know that no one else is going to take that right wing back spot from him? Or, you've got Chilwell, who's a little bit cheaper, then you've got Cucurella, who's cheaper again. So I don't think you can pick just Cucurella based on the fact that he's the cheapest out of the 3. I feel like if you're going to pick from the Chelsea defense, it's almost James, Chilwell, and then like Fofana. Because if you want to save money, then you're better off just getting the 4-5 guy, 4-4 guy that is going to play. So I think I really like Cucurella, but it's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
What would you guys do?
I just want to ask the question to Dom. Is there a world where one of them two, mainly Cucurella, because he's done it in the past for Brighton back in the day, where he plays and does a shift at left wing?
Nah. I was actually just thinking about that before, but...
If he does, it'd be awesome.
I think there's a world where it happens.
I think him and Chilwell will be too similar, though. You know what I mean? Like, to play them both on the same side, I think that whoever plays that left wing needs to come in. You know what I mean? Like, they need to sit narrower because then they're just going to run into each other. It's not going to be a winger that's going to hit the byline. It's going to be someone like Pulisic that wants to look to drive inside to allow that space out the back. But I like the thought. If it was Poch and they were going to come in and play 4-3-3, then I'd like it more.
Yeah, I hear that.
But not under Potter.
It's going to be Potter.
In terms of your question there, Paul, do you think, what would you do over Cucurella or Chilwell? Where James, I think you could make a move for him this game week 9, obviously avoid Liverpool. Cucurella and Ben Chilwell is probably the one where you want to watch until probably game week 10, 11 and go, okay, that's the one. And then ride that player to the World Cup if you want to go for the Chelsea asset on the left side.
Yeah, I think that's a fair representation. Dom, obviously you've been pretty vocal on don't get any Chelsea players. I'll add this in as we talk.
Wait until after game week 8.
That's what I laughed at.
Yeah, I thought it might have been. I don't think Angie's anywhere near this job. I think he's got a big job to do at Celtic still, and that's what I expect him to do. So, look, I think Cucurella definitely someone to add to the watch list because if it goes the right way for him, then we could be looking at the best 5 million-ish defender in the game if he's given the license to be the left wing back. But again, there's a huge risk that, there's massive rotation or one plays Champions League, one plays Premier League, and then it gets flipped in, and then there's cup games. Like, I think there's just too much room for rotation. Where if you're going to take the Chelsea defender at the moment, I'd be taking Reece James and then, Koulibaly or Koulibaly was like 5-5, wasn't he? So I probably wouldn't go near Koulibaly. At the same price, I'd rather take one of the left backs. But the other one would be Fofana if you really want a budget-locked Chelsea defender, more for the clean sheets if they're going to come. Then you could restructure your team into Fofana and move the money elsewhere. So the next one we want to talk about is Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Again, had spent some time at right wing back. Again, I don't particularly think he's going to play that role anymore.
Next.
He'll fade out of the team, I think, at this point. So, look, do I like the idea of it? No, but he is a very versatile player who will he get minutes? Yes. Would I pay 5 million for him? No. I'd be getting, he's not the next one. Can I be sneaky? Because I've not structured this the best way, but I'm going to go to the 5 mil option I would get. There we go.
Hey!
Not much. Now, I spoke about him the other night on Monday. I really like him at the moment, and I didn't have any data to prove to you guys of why I liked him. I just said I watched that full game against Leicester at the weekend, and he looked really, really good. When I was statting him out today, the 17 shots, 13 in the box, and an XG of 2.5 without a goal, I'm like, holy crap. I think he's due at some point. And we're talking about there's no 5 million midfielders, yada, yada, yada. If he asked me this 2 hours ago, he'd be someone I'd be willing to take a -4 on. Now that Potter's up in the air, I'd be like, wait a minute, let's just see. Because is he a product of the system, or is he going to be sort of not system proof, but coach proof? Like, is this data and is this ability that he's shown enough? Because when you look at the data, the FPL returns aren't there because he's had 2 assists and he's had no goals. So his points aren't going to be reflective of someone who's been performing quite well. If you look at Leon Bailey at 5 million, had the goal, had the assist, you'd look at the FPL points and you'd look at the hype and you'd go, Leon Bailey's the guy. But 17 shots in 6 games is unbelievable for someone who's coming in at 5 mil. Like, when we talk about expected data, eventually the data needs to reflect in points. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Solly March, fellas, before we look at the other options?
There's a world where, I know this is super long term, he comes in as a defender next year because he spent most of his time at right wing back. If he's ever gets listed as a defender in FPL, he's as nailed on as Trent Alexander-Arnold, because the things this guy does on a football pitch is ridiculous. I've watched plenty of Brighton this season. They're the favourite side that I have spent time watching this year. They are unbelievable. This guy, it's the areas of positions he gets in. It's not like he's shooting from 30 yards outside the box. He's getting in. He's getting around the area. He's getting into the box with late runs from the other side when the ball's on the left-hand side and he comes down the right. Or, his ability to whip a ball in is ridiculously good too. Gets in very advanced areas. And, if we're thinking longer term and, what to do about Solly March, short term, 2 game week punt. I don't care who the manager is with those stats. You probably don't mind bringing him in as a 2 game week punt before your wild card in game week 9. Or if in January he gets a move somewhere, which could be an option, especially if Potter ends up at Chelsea and he wants to bring a couple of boys from Brighton, he would be someone to obviously have a look at in that sort of regard as well. But that's super long term and very situation dependent, but definitely a cracking player. That's definitely worth a look in your FPL sides, even if Potter leaves.
Yeah, Dom, any thoughts on Solly March as that sort of third Brighton midfielder option? Because we've got Gross, Trossard as 2 that everyone's talking about in the community, but I don't feel that March is getting the recognition. What are your thoughts on him?
I'd give him a whirl if you're wild carding. What have you got to lose? Keep him in for 2 weeks. Blanks, you get rid of him. But that XG is just ridiculous. He must be one of the most underperforming players XG-wise.
Fits the Brighton mould.
Yeah, he's got to
Brighton are known as the XG guys that don't get the goals that they're expected.
Yeah.
So I think he's fitting the bill. And like, I'm looking at my team currently, and I'm looking at Bernardo at 7 mil. I know who I'd probably rather take, over these 2 weeks. Yeah. I'd rather have Solly March in my team and save the 2 mil. But am I prepared to take a -4? Not really, because I took a -8 last week. But if I'd seen the data, I think Solly March's data, it'd be interesting. Maybe, Dame, if you've got Fantasy Football Hub, you might be able to just get the game week 6 up for me for Solly March, because I feel like some of his data may be a little bit exaggerated from the game last weekend, because I felt like every time they attacked, like, it wouldn't surprise me if he had 7 shots last week, because he had about 2 or 3 big chances last week, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was in the 6-7 shot range.
He gets high as well.
Here we go. 6 shots, 2 outside the area, 4 inside the area. And there we are. Pretty much. There you go. XG of 0.68.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like crazy high XG compared to the rest of the season, but I did feel like I saw him a lot more involved at the weekend. But again, I'm very interested in Solly March. The fixtures post those 4, I think we mentioned it last week. So after Tottenham, it goes Brentford, Nottingham Forest, and then it gets bad, Man City, Chelsea. Yeah. So, if you want to bring him in, I think if you're bringing him in, you've got to bring him in now, and you've got to at least ride him to game week 12. And you just ride, and you can bench him for Liverpool and Tottenham if you really have to.
He's 5 mil, of course you can.
Oh my god, that's making me really tempted to move on Bernardo, but I don't want to because I
There's,
believe in Bernardo.
there's part of me that could say that he's outperforming the expected XG is Salah. You want to just take him all the way down there, but I wouldn't just
No,
yet.
you wouldn't do that.
We wouldn't
Anyway.
do that just yet. But yeah, Solly March, definitely an option.
All right, let's move that way. We'll get to our friend later. Leandro Trossard, we've spoken about him already. Dame, do you want to maybe kick us off with your thoughts on Trossard? Because you've been pretty vocal on him over the last few days.
Yeah, look, I think he's great. I think he's fantastic. He's someone that if he doesn't start at left wing back, he starts in the 10 or even up front. So you're getting the best of either in a left wing back role where he's going to make a lot of overlapping runs, create XG, or expected assists, get on things late, or if he goes up top or in the 10, he's always a man that pops in and around the box, always seems to be on the end of moves as well, which is always great. It's the worst when a player looks good, but he's the passer to the assister. Danny Welbeck this year has been that player a lot of times. When Trossard, usually for Brighton, is the guy getting on the end of the last pass to knock it home, or be the guy that's setting up Pascal Gross, for instance. So I think he's great. I think he's outrageously good. He's outrageously undervalued in terms of how good he is for this Brighton squad. I feel also at 6.5 mil, I think they got the pricing smack bang on. I think if you know him from his FPL scores from last year and what he's done so far, I don't think this is too much of a shock to most people. Do I wish I had him in my team? Oh, yeah, I do, because he's a guy that I admire a lot. If you're wildcarding game week 9 and you want a Salah replacement, I know where we wouldn't say you would go, March. Trossard is definitely someone you can go for 2 weeks.
Bang.
Any thoughts on that one, Dom, before we quickly brush on our third player who we think could be in and amongst the conversations at the moment? I don't want to focus too much on the Brighton players, but the idea of this, guys, is to give you a bit of context around what we could see from Graham Potter if he's to go to Chelsea. I feel that Trossard role is a bit of a hybrid one at the moment because he's played a little bit of left wing back. He's played a little bit behind the strikers. So obviously we're talking about some of the impact that Chilwell and Cucurella will have on the team, but also whether it's, I think Havertz and Mount, or Havertz and Sterling, or Mount and Sterling are going to be the sort of three guys going through that number 10 role. And then obviously up front, it's pretty much Aubameyang, I think. Aubameyang or bust, or some games it might be Sterling, depending, or Brozier as well. But actually, Brozier could be a good shout if it's Graham Potter. But so Trossard's role is a bit different. Solly March, this should give you guys some confidence if it's going to be Reece James in that right wing back role. If you're seeing like Solly March has had 10 more shots than Reece James this season.
That's ridiculous.
Who would have thought through 6 weeks that would have been the case?
If Reece James is having 17 shots over expected amount of time,
he's scoring 4.
I was going to say scoring anywhere from 4 to 8.
Yeah. So that's what we need to be mindful of with Reece James. And at 6 million as a defender versus 5 million as a midfielder there for Solly March, I think Reece James with the clean sheet potential could be massive. And then big Estupiñán, so I should have added in his minutes because they're quite reduced. He's only played 2.5 games or so. Yeah, he came on really late at the weekend, so I wouldn't even count last week. He played 45 minutes in his first game, and then he got a start in game week 5, I think. I think he played 5, 6, 7. He's played, I think.
Yeah.
So he hasn't played heaps of minutes. He's under 1 assist, which was a penalty that he won, but I feel like he had an assist rubbed out. Did he get the assist maybe for the McAllister goal? I feel like I know he couldn't have. Sorry. No, I think I'm pretty sure he had an assist rubbed out in one of the games anyway. But he looked lively. Yeah. Again, it's that left wing back role. So whoever it's going to be for Chelsea, whether it's going to be Chilwell or Cucurella, I think we know. Like, it's a guarantee that whoever's in that role is going to play well. It's obviously a 50-50 of who that's going to be. So, again, 4.5 million for Estupiñán. I think he's going to be manager-proof. I think he's the definite number 1 left wing back. And I think Trossard's only really been in there until he's really gotten settled. So I'm very excited to see how he'll develop playing for Brighton. But I think when it comes to our data, I think there's much more to talk about as Stupian. And I don't want to leave the studio. I want to unshare my screen. Lots to think about. So, Dom, as the Chelsea fan in our stream, what would be the one thing you're looking for in Graham Potter to bring to Chelsea as potentially the next manager?
Just play exactly the same way and system that he's played this year and just back the players. Give him a free roam.
Just let
be
them
solid at the back. Those 3 centre backs have to be solid, which he's got a good foundation, and just play the exact same system.
Yeah.
Show those boys how he's played at Brighton, and their plays, their set plays and whatnot. Just bring that to Chelsea because he's absolutely killing. They absolutely killed it this season so far, and they're just a joy to watch. And as much as I love him, Chelsea haven't been very good to watch this season.
Yeah, that's fair. So if you had to pick what you think the best 11 is, and then I might get Damo to maybe try and draw up what Potter might do, what do you reckon the starting 11 should be versus what Potter might have? Yeah.
Mendy, Fofana, Silva, Koulibaly, Reece James, Kovacic, a fit Kante.
Yeah.
That's the thing. So this is pending all players are fit.
Yeah.
Kante, Cucurella. At the moment, Cucurella.
Just on form?
At the moment. Yeah, based on form. And if he's playing a 3-5-2, I'd like to see Havertz in behind Sterling and Aubameyang or Brozier. Because we need that hold up number 9, which like Welbeck's been doing this year. But it means people like Mason Mount miss out, but that's how it is. It's professional football.
Yeah, and you have to fight for that spot, maybe in behind potentially, and that he might have to make that his own.
But he's got the depth to work with as well.
Is there a world where
Brighton
Mount
has just got the Premier League?
Yeah,
there's spots.
Is there a world where Mount potentially plays that line deeper, the way that he's used McAllister, who's traditionally been a 10?
Not when you got Kovacic, Kante, Jorginho, and now Zachariah to choose from.
Yeah.
Mountain hasn't looked great there when he's played there. Has that 8?
Well, he just hasn't looked good at all this year, to be fair. Whether it's been on the left, whether it's been in behind, whether it's been deeper, he's been dreadful.
Needs a spell. Yeah. But I'll let him slide because he's been our best player for 2 years, so he gets a pass.
A little bit of a dip. Yeah. All right, Damo, I think you've been frantically...
I'm trying to. I'm trying.
We'll give you more time.
I haven't got it there yet. Plus, I've got the cat that's now come in front of me there too. So I'm trying to make sure that doesn't go to whatever. But yeah,
all right, we'll give you a bit more time. Good question coming in here from Dim as well. Don't forget Gallagher as a natural box-to-box midfielder. Again, I was thinking this the other day. I've actually been a little bit disappointed in his performances. Obviously, he's stepped in from Crystal Palace where he played week in and week out. He hasn't had that opportunity so far, but he just hasn't looked great. He's just looked a bit off the pace almost so far for me. He just hasn't really looked up to him. He got sent off as well, didn't he? He got 2 yellows from memory. Yeah. I mean, that's, not ideal, but I just think his touch has been a bit off. The passing hasn't been there. The set pieces haven't been there. I think he's put a bit of pressure on himself to have to perform coming back. Because we weren't seeing this from him last year at Crystal Palace, but granted, the role is a little bit different at Chelsea than it was at Palace. But I think he's definitely someone that Potter could potentially get the best out of because Kante's shown that he's not the same level of injury proneness. There was a period where he was going to start breaking down naturally, and they need to start thinking of ifs, buts, and maybes. If he can't get up for every game, you'd want him available for the run of games when you've got Tottenham's and Liverpool's and Man City's and those teams. You definitely want Kante there. So maybe they start to manage his minutes a little bit when he is healthy, just so they don't run him into the ground.
Yeah.
All right.
Damo. Let's see how this goes. And Dom, obviously, let me know if you want to make some changes. Now, this is being based on your team. No. Oh, well, if it was my team, I kind of went with what I think you would go with there as well. Let me go to this Microsoft tab. Build a formation. Forwards and triple cutting Lerma for Bournemouth CDM. Zach, you're having
Yes.
a laugh, lad. You're having a laugh, so you should do it. More importantly, as you can see on my team here, I'm just going off the fact that live score has it as like a 4, a 3, a flat 5, and then a 1 and a 1 that Potter likes to play. In the eye test, usually it's the guys that kind of sit in centre mid bomb and really get behind the striker. So I've put it in like that just for the visual representation. And with that being said, Mount in behind with Sterling behind a Aubameyang or a Brozier, who I would definitely recommend as an option Chelsea go for, I think is definitely going to be exciting. It allows Jorginho and Kante to really realistically sit as well. You saw what Mwepu did from that deeper role for one of the goals on the weekend, picking the ball up, driving, then laying one off. That's pretty good. You get James Cucurella, Ben Chilwell was fine as well. I just think if it's Potter, he's going to start Cook, I think, to begin with, because he knows and trusts him. And then obviously for Fafana, Silva, Koulibaly, no particular order there as well there, Dom. I kind of rushed into this with Mendy. Yeah. I just feel like if that's me picking a team inside 2 minutes and Potter's going to have plenty of time to sit there, go through it, really understand who his best players are, that's going to be a best team that he puts in for the weekend if he gets the job overnight tonight, as I reckon is in Australian time, so I reckon he will. Then that's a good enough team that can beat Fulham, obviously, A. But more importantly, you add in the fact Chilwell gets fit. He's got a bigger squad to choose from. He might even turn around and say Brozier's my man because he's a bit more like him in Welbeck. I think that's really exciting for you. As much as I don't think you should have sacked Tuchel, that's an exciting little team in the way it could go.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
There's obviously changes that you can make for that too, but that's kind of how I'll draw up that Brighton system on paper.
Yeah, and I think they just need that consistency, I think, too. I think players like James and if it is Mount, they just need those consistent minutes in those roles, I think, under Potter, because it's going to be, a new shape, not even really new shape, but new system, new message, new personnel.
Yeah.
Because you're going to expect to see, new background staff coming in as well. So there's going to be a new message, which is understandable. But obviously, I'm of the opinion that I think if it is Potter, then I kind of think it's a positive move. I'm at that point because clearly there's been issues there with Tuchel that needed to get addressed. Is it ideal to sack someone 6 weeks into a season? No. But I think if it is Potter, I think the risk is very limited in that it can't go that bad. You know what I mean? I feel like it's going to be safe. It's someone who can play a similar way that the players are already accustomed to, as we've already said, and I think we'll see the best out of some of those players that are underperforming now. Do I think he can get the best out of players like Aubameyang? Probably not, because we've seen him try to take advantage of managers in the past, such as Arteta and the way he left Dortmund. I just think there's this thing with Aubameyang that needs a manager that's bigger than him. So we saw under Wenger that he was able to thrive. That would be my worry. Again, you're not that committed into Aubameyang, if I'm not getting that wrong. I think, was it a 1-year deal?
2, I think. Yeah,
2?
Big deal.
Whatever. Yeah. If Brozier's the one that Potter looks at and goes, I want to develop him, then it wouldn't surprise me if we see Brozier starting to play a little bit more than he had been as well, because he actually looked okay at Southampton in periods last year too. But, or you could easily see a world where it's Sterling. But as you mentioned, Dom, I think there's a world where you see the bigger number 9 that looks to go in the channels and hold the ball. And I think Brozier's your best one at doing that.
Yeah, he's just on a 6-year deal as well, so I think they're going to invest in him.
I've got a name for you.
Well, here we go.
In a year, at the end of this year, and if it's Graham Potter and he loves a bigger striker, it has to be Lukaku back on loan.
Oh, no, Lukaku's out on loan.
Yeah, but then he comes back on loan from Inter back to Chelsea, and Potter's there and goes, hello.
No, Chelsea own him still.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He's on loan so he's not coming, he's going back from loan.
He'll come back in a year's time. Yeah, he's come back from Inter at the end of the season. Yeah. Potter's in charge. He loves a big name striker. The rebirth of Lukaku under Potter. I think there's definitely a potential that happens.
Could see that happening.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think he'd thrive under Potter too. If he's got those guys buzzing around him and he just has to run into the channels and draw defenders and goals isn't the main threat for the Brighton striker. Like even Morpay's role was to annoy defenders, take them into spaces they didn't want to be in, get them moving around so that those guys underneath can work their magic. And that's what Lukaku doesn't need the ball played into his feet, back to goal, trying to then turn and dribble, whatever. Like, Lukaku wants that ball played into a channel over the top where he can run onto it. And that's where we see that he does well when he's played at Inter. And I think if that's how they're going to play on the break and then have those guys like Sterling's and Pulisic's and, Cucurella's and James's all buzzing in and around and interchanging and all that, then I think, Lukaku coming back could be something that we look at big time next season.
The goal I think about was Trossard's goal 2 weeks ago where the ball gets played into a channel and Welbeck literally comes across. He's just onside because it's a VAR check, which is on goal rush, brings it down, lays one pass inside to, I think it was Pascal Gross, who then lays it into Trossard to finish his cross keeper.
Yeah.
It might be the other way around. If that's Lukaku, you're going to get that 9 times out of 10, that movement, the ability to bring it down and lay another player in. More importantly, unlike any other striker that Potter would have ever had to use before, is you've got a guy that's naturally got an instinct to find the back of the net as well. Morpay's someone that has to work hard for his goals. Welbeck's not your natural clinical finisher as well. You're going to have that complete forward role that Potter loves to play with on top of a guy that's going to score goals. And for Brozier, it would be 6-8 months here of thank you very much for your time. Go learn the role. Here you go. And then it'll be a couple of years under Lukaku of this is what you really need to do. And then Brozier will really turn into that prospect towards that, contract year 4 to 6 with that long-term contract he has of a really good option for Chelsea. I think it's if Potter comes in, it's a great move and an exciting time for Lukaku and Brozier. And I think Aubameyang would be definitely on the peripheral, if not out.
Yeah, so I reckon from a Chelsea perspective, I think we've probably dissected every element of it. I guess the main other factor in this is what happens to Brighton as a result, if this is what's going to happen. So we've mentioned a few times that Brighton's start to the season has been extremely strong. They've looked very, very good. Obviously, there's plenty of managers that are out there that are looking for work, but it's going to be one of those ones where it's really hard to replace what they've been doing. And I think that's the main factor is you don't want to lose that momentum, but when the manager and the message changes, is there, as a manager coming in, we've said what Potter needs to do to keep that squad together. Do we think that's something that's as replicable with Brighton? Because as Dom's mentioned, the depth isn't quite there, or maybe the quality's not the same as the top 6 club. What do we think happens within the next or up to the World Cup potentially with Brighton?
Depends on the manager they get. There's a couple of options out there for them. Finding a manager that's got to play a similar system that what Potter does, unless you're getting Tuchel because they kind of mirror each other, which you're never getting Tuchel, then I think it's hard. I think the managers they might go for is Bielsa. I also think Dominic Tedesco, because he just got sacked from Leipzig, could be an option. Then outside of that, you're really looking at who can you pinch. No, Dom said Brendan Rodgers. I wouldn't go near him right now if you're another football club. I would love to be the job after Rodgers gets the job. Rodgers gets sacked, gets another job, and then take him if he has a good time. On top of that, there's no one else that you really, off the top of your head, go, yeah, he's the guy. So it's an interesting time. Unless they want to take a punt on, I'm just trying to think. Sean Dyche might be available for him, and it could be solid, but it's a different type of football. With Sean Dyche, he never was able to be free at Burnley and had a couple of really good years at Burnley. So
I think he'll kill their whole.
I think if Tedesco really wants a new role after getting sacked from Leipzig straight away, this could be a good move for him. If not, I do think it could be some really strong links to Bielsa there as well. And
what about Scott Parker with better players? I know he's had a bad record, but
I think he's a good manager. Would you be Brighton in this position where you know that you've had such a good start and if you can just get to the World Cup under a manager and be in and around the European fight like West Ham, for instance, I could finish inside a Europa League or a Conference League, which would be huge for them. I feel like they would go after a bigger name manager than a punt on Scott Parker, but you never know. And that's kind of been their mold. They've kind of taken some of that thing, we don't care the reputation of the person. We're going to give this guy time. They've done it with Potter. Scott Parker could be the guy as well.
Yeah, I just think he's always been riddled by teams that are under-resourced. So when he was at Fulham, they threw money at it, but it was just, the
That
Nottingham
was
Forest
just
style.
disaster.
Exactly, it was disaster. Then he goes down to Bournemouth, gets them up, and then openly says, we don't have the players. And then you wonder why they lose 9-0 to Liverpool, and then he gets the chop very early on in, and a bit of a redemption for him with a team that actually I think looked okay, other than that 9-0 thrashing of
They've
from
gone
us.
and gotten 4 points in the next 2 games.
Yeah.
Well, that's concerning though. That's not a stat you'd want in the Pro Parker column. They've
Yeah,
kind of got
they
points
played
without him.
Forest. They played
Mate,
Yeah,
you're
but-
right. They played Forest, but
That
they
wasn't
got
to
a
do
good
with
draw.
his on-field performances. I think that was all about
That's his
him
players though.
coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's an
He's-
option. Like the way I look at it, Damo, is look what Eddie Howe's done at Newcastle. Obviously went down with Bournemouth. Well, didn't go down with them, but was part of the team that got relegated last time they were in the Premier League. But everyone knew of his quality. Obviously, there was some serious links to Potter to Arsenal a while ago too when Arteta came in. But do you go if you're going to go after your guy, then it shows that, if you're going to back their philosophy and the way they play, like Eddie Howe had to adapt to what Newcastle had last season just to make sure they stayed in the league. And then now he's been afforded the opportunity to bring in some better quality players, obviously due to the financial situation they're in. But, sticking fat with the manager sometimes is the way through. And that's just where Parker sort of sits with me. I don't feel any of the managers last season from the Premier League that went down, just from memory. Yeah, I don't think there's really anyone. Maybe like the only one I'd consider is maybe Dean. What's his name? Dean Smith, the one that was at Villa and Norwich. He's someone who I think again was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Obviously, he was at Villa after Norwich. I think it was the other way. No, he was at Villa, then went to Norwich, and Norwich were a sinking ship. Like there was only so much he was going to be able to do with that squad as well. Could he be someone? Because he plays good football. I think I've enjoyed watching him play. But his teams play, or his Villa team in particular. He could definitely be someone that goes to Brighton. But again, it's there's not many managers in the English game that do play a similar way to Brighton. So I just think, regardless of who you get, bar Bielsa, no one's going to play that back three unless you go on foreign.
They got to go foreign.
I think they have to. I'm just trying to think of who they can get.
They're just not an English footy team. They're just they're very European.
Yeah. I'm having a bit of a read on Sky Sports trying to see if Brighton's been linked to any managers so far. And on Twitter, I don't see anything just as yet. Sounds like they're going to have a look at it properly. And this is what I like about Brighton. They don't panic. They just take things slow and look. From an FPL perspective for their players, I don't think much is going to change over the next 2 weeks. So I still think they're good punts. After game week 9, a new manager comes in, new system, new time to have a look. It might be a time to just be off them for a bit, have a look to the World Cup and see if they're still going to be the good assets that they are.
Just frustrating when they've got Bournemouth and Crystal Palace at home in the next 2, and then in 11 and 12, Brentford's not easy, but then you get Forest at home in game week 12. Bit frustrating, but there's a good run of games here going sort of into and then out of the World Cup where they go Wolves, Villa, Southampton, Arsenal, Everton. Then they get Liverpool. Then it's Leicester, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Newcastle, West Ham, Leeds, Man United, Brentford.
Yeah.
And then they finish the season unbelievable with Forest, Wolves, Everton, Arsenal, Southampton, Aston Villa. So there's going to be like 2 or 3 big periods where the Brighton players could be big assets. So don't
100%.
be disappointed right now that the assets might be dwindling. There's plenty of good runs for Brighton coming up this season.
I would agree.
Now, for any of those that are in the comments, if you have any questions you want to ask us, get them in now because we were going to keep this one to a bit shorter than the other streams as well, just to bring you that breaking news as we wait for any potential questions. Make sure you are sharing the stream around. Make sure you are liking it to make sure that we can help reach as many people as we can. And make sure you are subscribing to the channel if you want to be on this road to potentially being the best FPL player in the game out of 10 million people. Then this is the place to be. And also all the different content. Damo has his review preview sort of going up very shortly. There'll also be some more shorts content with another stream, hopefully this week as well. But I think if that is all from the comments. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time at very short notice. That is much appreciated. Hopefully,
That's okay, lad.
everyone's enjoyed our bit of analysis here on a cold Wednesday night. Another big week upcoming. We've also had a whole heap of Champions League games last night that we haven't even touched on, and more games tonight. But we'll probably touch on a bit more of that hopefully on Friday afternoon. So make sure you are in the Discord. If you're not, I might need to put that in the description, which I think I did in the last episode anyway. I should have the Linktree link anyway, which has podcast, has the Discord, has the YouTube, has the Twitter, and all the socials that we are accessing. But once again, fellas, thanks for your engagement tonight, and we will be live again before the deadline over the weekend.
Perfect.